Greetings, my name is Siobhan Hancock with the New Mexico Department of Health Obesity, Nutrition, and Physical Activity Program. Healthy indigenous cooking is part of a statewide effort to reduce obesity, diabetes, and other chronic diseases in Indian country using traditional Native American recipes. New Mexico is home to 23 distinct tribes, pueblos, and nations, each with its own culturally different foodway. This webinar series focuses on healthy meal preparation of Southwest Native American recipes using indigenous ingredients available in New Mexico. You may substitute some items with local produce or spices from your area. The recipe and other cooking sessions are available online. See the resource slide at the end of this presentation for more information. Healthy Indigenous Cooking is sponsored by New Mexico Department of Health. This program is partly funded by Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program for Education, SNAP-Ed, and the CDC. Let me introduce you to our chefs. Lois Ellen Frank, PhD, is the chef-owner of Red Mesa Cuisine, a Santa Fe, New Mexico-based catering company that specializes in indigenous Native American cuisine and cultural education with a modern twist. Lois cooks alongside Native American chef Walter Whitewater, who works with Chef Frank in Santa Fe, New Mexico. He was one of the first Native American chefs to cook at the James Beard House in New York City. For more information about our chefs, please watch the Session 1 video or go to their website at redmesacuisine.com. Session 4, Hominy Harvest Stew and Piñon Chile Beans. Let's get started with Chef Lois Ellen Frank and Chef Walter Whitewater.
Hi everyone, my name is Lois Ellen Frank and I'm here with Chef Walter Whitewater, and we are both of Red Mesa Cuisine in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And we have some great recipes we're going to do today. We're going to start off with a hominy harvest stew, and it is really easy to do. It's nutritious. It's a culturally appropriate meal. You grew up eating hominy. I know I grew up with the white, but not the other colors. So we're going to talk about that. Chef Walter's going to be filming today, and I'll be cooking, and then we'll show you guys how to make a delicious stew. And we're really happy that you were able to join us today. All right, Chef, you're going to go to the filming, and I'll start with talking a little bit about hominy. And hominy here in New Mexico is also called pozole. And pozole is the treated corn that's been either cooked, soaked in ash, and then cooked in ash, or a lime solution. So Chef Walter's going to show you. We have white, blue, and red, and these are all the colors that we can get here. These are sold at the Santa Fe Farmers Market. The most common and the most readily available is the white, and it comes dry primarily, but it also comes frozen, and sometimes it comes canned. I'm not a big fan of the canned. I believe it tastes much better if we can cook it from dried or frozen, but there you have the white, you have the blue, and you have the red. So this is corn that's been gone through a nixtamalization process, which in a previous episode we talked about when we made corn tortillas. So here you can see the beautiful white, and look at the blue. You could use white or blue. I'm going to do white today just because that's the most readily available. But if you have access to the blue and you can order the blue, I would absolutely encourage you to make this stew with both white and blue. But let's focus on the white because I know that that's completely readily available for everyone. And I want to make sure that everybody has access to that. So, you know, there's a term that we learn when we go to culinary school, and it's a French term. It's actually called mise en place. And what it means is that you want to have everything in its place before you are ready to cook. Because if your vegetables aren't cut and things aren't prepped, it makes it much more difficult. So in today, we've cooked our hominy, and I like to do a slow cooker, but Walter's a big fan of the Instant Pot. he actually has one and he's buying another one. So he has one in every location that he goes to. And you could also use a pressure cooker, but I think the Instapot's more popular. And that way it takes quickly. Otherwise, you could do the corn in a slow cooker or crock pot. It's just going to take a little longer. And we're using squash today. And squash is amazing, healthy, wonderful food. We have a yellow squash and a green zucchini. And squash is high in fiber, loaded with antioxidants, rich in manganese, and manganese boosts bone strength. So this is very important for seniors, very important for our community members, helps the body's ability to process fats and carbohydrates, high in vitamin A, high in vitamin C and B6, rich in folate, magnesium, and phosphorus and potassium. Wow. So squash is amazing. And then we're also going to be using chilies. Chilies, one of our ancestral ingredients from the past, very important. Chilies have medicinal qualities. One green chili has the equivalent of vitamin C and 6 oranges. We're going to be using 2 kinds of red chili today. So not quite as much, but still a lot of vitamin C. They're antifungal, antibacterial. They help arthritis, sore muscles, aches and pains. There's ointments or creams you can buy called capsaicin, which do that. They release endorphins in the body, and endorphins in the body are amazing because this is the body's natural painkillers. So chilies actually stimulate a feel-good response, leaving you with a feel-good response, a little bit of a natural high. Chocolate and exercise also release endorphins in the body. And then, of course, we're using our most sacred ingredient again, which is corn. And corn, of course, the essence of life in Native traditions. And this corn especially, very, very sacred. So corn is much more than just something to eat. It's actually got lots of different qualities. So we're going to start. Let's start with our onion. And we're using an onion. I'm going to show you the chef's way to do this. So I have my part of the onion that has the root or where the hairs are, and then the top of it. So we're going to actually cut that off. And then what we can do is we can just take this onion and peel it back. And we're leaving the rest of the onion intact. And the reason we're doing that is because it's going to be very quick to do. So here you can see that. And Walter and I compost. Hopefully some of you compost in your kitchens or put back some of these foods back to the earth. A compost is great if you're growing a garden. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our knife and we're going to do incisions all the way up to that root, fairly close together, so that we can have a nice fine dice. And I'm going to go all the way on that. And then you're going to see how easy this is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hands and curl them, and I'm going to cut this way. And look, we have a dice very quickly, even. It's beautiful. And then you're just going to take your finger, wipe off that knife if you need to. And then what we have will go all the way down to where those cuts end. And then the remainder of this is just going to get composted. We're going to take this onion and put it into the bowl. So Chef, will you just show them this? So we've chopped our onion, and here we go into the bowl. So that's easy. The next vegetable that we're going to cut, so onion, pretty easy, is we're going to do our tomato. And so I'm going to cut the top off, and then I'm going to do strips. As different chefs do different ways. That's going to go in the compost. And then I'm going to do verticals. And then I'm going to turn those verticals and do a dice. Chef Walter does his a little differently. He's very fast. This is a fast way. And then same thing, go strips and then turn. Okay. And again, we're curling our fingers so that we don't risk cutting. And then that's our tomato. So that's going to go into our bowl. The next thing we're going to do, look at how easy and quick, right? Is we're going to do our zucchini. And zucchinis are pretty uniform in size. If you are part of the fresh produce program, I would encourage you to get local because that's going to have the most nutrients, be the freshest. And you know, at different times of the year, it's easier or not as easy. So we're at an in-between stage, but during the summer months, zucchini's everywhere. It's very reasonably priced. It's going to have lots of flavor. So I've cut my zucchini in half, and now I'm going to do half moons. Okay, again, curling those fingers. Okay, I'm trying to do the same width. Look at that. And then pushing it off the knife. And, you know, I love cutting. You have to be focused. You don't want to be distracted. You don't want to talk to your coworkers, or you want to be as focused as you can. And then here is our zucchini. Now, this yellow squash is a little bit larger. If they were the same size as the zucchini, and when we buy them or get them from our local farms or our local farmers market, they're going to be the same size as the zucchini, but this is bigger. So rather than doing very large pieces, remember who's your audience, who's eating it. We want to do pieces that are a little bit smaller. So I am going to cut in half. Okay, and then I'm going to put it flat on my cutting board. I'm going to cut in half again, and then I'm going to quarter it. Okay, because we want to have a size that's close to that, and these are larger. So you might want to use one if it's larger, which would be the equivalent of 2 zucchini. Same thing, curling my fingers, trying to make those slices uniform. See, that's pretty nice. And that's a nice size bite for our stew, okay? Here. And we already cut one, so I'm just gonna add, look at that, beautiful, right? Add this to that because we want approximately the same amount of yellow squash with the same amount of zucchini squash. So we want to look at our menu. We have tomatoes done, we have onions done. Let's do our garlic. We have our corn that's cooked, and then we have spices. And Chef Walter will show you these amazing spices. We have azafran. And azafran is also called Mexican safflower. You can get it from a local New Mexico company called Rio Grande Herb. It's sold in some of the supermarkets and should be available from your purveyor. We have bay leaves. We have a New Mexico chili. Look at that gorgeous red color. We're going to be using some New Mexico red chili pods right here. And whenever you're processing the red chili pods, I'll show you how to do that. We have dried thyme, dried Mexican oregano, which we decant into jars. So here's a locally grown New Mexico red chili. It's completely dry. We're going to get the top off. And then what we want to do is remove the seeds. And the reason we want to remove the seeds is because that's where the heat is. And especially when we're feeding seniors, we don't want to make this stew too hot, but we do want to get some of the delicious and nutritional benefits from the chili. And we're just going to break that into small pieces. You're going to know your clientele, and always easier to add less than what the recipe says. And then if you taste the stew, which we'll do, you can always add more, but we don't want to make it too hot. And Walter actually has a very mild palate. He doesn't like things hot. He likes things savory. So he's very sparingly with the chili. So we want to make nice little pieces. That's going to get reconstituted. This is going to go in my compost bowl here. Okay. And then last thing I need to do is to cut the garlic. So we've peeled the garlic, or you can usually order peeled garlic already. The only thing you want to do is just cut off those ends, especially if you see a little bit of brown. See that brown end? We're going to just remove that. Okay. It's usually hard, and that's where the tip. So see, and then that again will go get discarded or go in your compost bowl. So again, curling our fingers. We're going to start by chopping. And then what we're going to do is we want to do a fine dice. So what I like to do is take my knife, hold it here and just go back and forth over those. You can push it together. Do it again. Okay, so that we have, we're working towards a very fine dice. Now, if you're doing a lot of garlic, one of the easiest things to do is to put it in a, what we call a food processor or a RoboQ or Cuisine and just grind it. Just cut the ends off and you can grind quite a bit rather than taking the time to dice. So again, you know, if you're going to be using a lot of garlic, it's really easy. We do this all the time, right, Chef Walter?
Yep.
Yeah, and just makes that prep work go much quicker and easier. And you know, as cooks and chefs, we are always trying to figure out ways how to make things go smoother, how to make things go quicker and easier so that we're the most productive in the kitchen. So you're going to do this several times back and forth. And as the garlic builds up on your knife, you'll just wipe it off. Again, I always go away from the sharp part of the knife, and then really fine dice. You can hold flat or you can hold the edge, going back and forth, pushing together and making a really, really fine dice. Okay, so there we have a really nice fine. This is actually called mincing or fine dice, and we're going to put that in our container here. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn our pan on and get that nice and hot. So the cooking, I have everything ready. So you want to check your recipe, make sure everything's ready. First thing we'll cook is the onion and garlic. So that's going to come over here. And, you know, the other thing that I have is I have some corn liquid. So this is the liquid from cooking the corn. It's really like a vegetable stock or a vegetable broth. Inexpensive because we're already cooking the corn. And I have, if you don't have this, or when you cook the corn, you didn't put enough water in so that there was liquid, you can always use water. But this has flavor. It has that delicious corn flavor. So we're definitely going to use some of that. And then we're just going to take a little bit of oil, and you can use either olive oil or we use sunflower oil because sunflower's, again, indigenous to Native Americans. And we're going to just add the required amount of oil and let that start to get hot. And then we're going to take our cut onions and put that in. You can hear that pan is hot, hear that beautiful sizzling sound. I actually love the sounds in the kitchen. Pretty amazing. And we're just going to let this cook for a couple minutes. We want it to start, my heat's on high. And then I'm going to start to get my other vegetables ready. So what's going to go in after the onion and garlic is the zucchini. So we have the yellow and the green, and then our tomato. So that's right here while those onions are cooking. And then we're also going to get our spices measured out so we can get the amount of spices that we need as those onions cook. So we can have our azafran in a little container, and our chili powder. And I always, like I said in the beginning, I always add a little bit less of the chili, and then I taste my stew so that if I need to, I can add more. But if it's got flavor and the spiciness is right, then I won't be adding any more of that. So again, you know, it depends. You know, your recipe may say up to 4 chilies, and I find that might be too spicy. So add 1 or 2 and taste it. There's the azafran and there's the chilies. So those are also on deck here, what we call on deck. So now my onions starting to cook. I'm going to go ahead and add the garlic. Okay, give it a nice stir. Again, don't be afraid to let it start to turn brown. the browning process is actually called caramelization. And the caramelization is when the onion goes from being a raw flavor to a cooked, it's caramelizing. And that's when it's turning brown. And actually that's really desirable. We definitely want that. So that's going to be important. So as those onions cook, rest of the herbs that we need, we're going to just get those herbs close by to our area where we're cooking. We're going to be using some bay leaves and then the oregano and the thyme. And again, with the spices, always add a little bit less. You can always add more after you taste. And Chef Walter, what's so here you can see that this is starting to turn brown. This is exactly what we want. Okay, take a look at that. And then the next thing we're going to add is our squash, our tomatoes, and yellow squash, zucchini squash, and tomatoes. So see those onions starting to get caramelized and turn brown, and that's exactly what you want. Perfect, right? So next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the tomatoes. Put that in the pan. Give it a nice stir. Hear that sizzling sound, that the heat's still on high. So whether you're making, cooking this for just 4 people, 40 people, whatever, it's going to be the same process, okay? There we go. Now we're going to add our yellow squash, and we want the same amount as we had our 2 zucchini. So I always base the amount on how much zucchini I have so that the ratio is even between the yellow and the green. And let's give that a stir. We want to cook this for a couple of minutes. And I love the smells. It's just so amazing, right? And we know we're making something nutritious. We know we're making something delicious. So the next thing we're going to think about adding here is we're going to add the bay leaves. We're going to add our chili powder. So I've got my bay leaves. We're going to add the azafran. So we're going to go ahead and pour that in. Here's our chili powder. Pour that in. Going to give it a nice stir. See? Just going to give it flavor and give it color. All right. Beautiful. And your pan is still dry. The tomatoes have a little moisture. If it starts to stick, it's okay. Don't worry about that. I'm going to take a little bit of those chili pods and put that in. Give it a stir again. And always consult your recipe if you're not familiar what to put in. And letting those vegetables cook nicely. So we've got our red chili pods, bay leaves, and our chili powder. And then the last thing we're going to get is our liquid. So we're going to add our corn. And this is what 1 cup of dried hominy corn looks like after it's cooked. It yields about somewhere between 5 and 6 cups. And you want to make sure it puffs. Make sure it's nice and puffed. Okay. So now we're going to add that. And ooh, look. Beautiful. There's the base to our soup. Okay. See that beautiful color? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our broth. Well, I'm using corn broth. If you don't have corn broth, then you can use water. Okay, so let's add that. And then what we want to do, ooh, beautiful, is, and again, if you don't have enough corn broth, you can always add water. Is we're going to give it a stir. You're going to see that gorgeous color, okay?
immediately, there's the base to your soup. That beautiful, beautiful color. And you want your water, you want your vegetables for it to cover. We're going to bring it to a boil. And we are going to simmer. There we go. Look at that. Gorgeous. Okay. For about 15 minutes. We're not going to use the blue today, but we showed them the blue, Chef Walter. Chef Walter was asking if I wanted to add the blue. So then what we want to do is we want to bring it to a boil. And look at that. Oh, it's gorgeous. Once it boils, we're going to reduce the heat and let it simmer. Okay. And after it has simmered, we're going to add the last. So I always use a kitchen timer just because time goes by so quickly in the kitchen. Then the last thing we're going to add. So let's bring it to a boil, reduce the heat. And of course, I have another stew that we made so that it's ready, just in the essence of time. And we're going to, Chef Walter will show you that one over here. So here's the one that we're cooking. Here is the one that we've cooked. Look at those gorgeous vegetables. And we can leave that brothy. What you always want to have in the kitchen is clean spoons so that you can taste. And I'm going to just give this a taste over here. And then you're going to see, do you like the oregano? Do you like the thyme? The only thing I'm going to add is a tiny bit of salt. Okay. And we're going to just let it get nice and hot. All right. So this one is what's going to cook. Once it's cooked, then we add our last ingredients, the Mexican oregano, the dried thyme. Now you can also use fresh herbs. The thing is that fresh herbs are expensive. So these were fresh and we just dried them. And that saves you a lot of money. So you can get fresh and then dry and then use the dried up. Or you can, we don't want to spend the money every time on fresh. So I'm going to set my timer. So salt, thyme, and oregano are going to be the last things that we're going to add. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my plate ready. And we are going to show you how we would plate this and serve it. So what we like to do is to serve it with lime. It adds a little bit of acid. So I'm just going to take a wedge of fresh lime. Okay. You can usually get, this is what I would consider a small lime. And Chef Walter's going to grab some cilantro from the fridge, and we'll get a little ladle to be able to serve. So we like cilantro, but again, that is something that you don't have to use. You could use cilantro. You could also garnish with some sprouts or microgreens, or just leave it plain. So we're going to just show you some cilantro. And then Chef Walter, will you also get me a ladle from the other kitchen? And I'm going to show you, so in a previous episode, we made tortillas, no fry bread, and blue corn no fry bread. So any of those would be the perfect bread for this stew. So let's see what basket I've chosen. And we'll show, oh, here's the blue corn. So we could take the blue corn no fry bread, and we could use that. I'm just going to move this so I can set my pan down. And we are going to get ready for the stew, right? Yummy. All right, so we're going to grab our stew pot and put that right here. This cooked, and we're just going to give it a final taste with a clean spoon that we have in the kitchen. We always have lots of clean spoons around. And let's give this a taste. So what we're going to do now is take our stew and do a serving. Now, sometimes what Chef Walter and I do, just for a little bit of a variation, is we take a little bit of this and blend it, and you can blend it to make it a little thicker. I like it like this, but I think Chef Walter likes to blend it. Again, it's totally up to you. And then what we would do is put a wedge of fresh lime and garnish with a little bit of fresh cilantro, right? And of course, the cilantro adds nutrients and is also edible. And then what we're going to do is serve any of these native breads. So let's say we're going to serve the blue corn. We would just put that right like that. How does that look, Chef? Is that the right angle? Yeah. And then we have a stew, but you could also serve it with, and I can guarantee that some of your patrons are going to want probably a second piece of bread. So you could serve the regular no fry bread as well, and cut that. We like to cut it in half and just serve it. There you go. So either of these would be delicious. Look at that. So we have a beautiful stew, easy to make, nutritious, delicious, and perfect for our elders, community members. Really, this stew would be great for anyone. So Chef Walter's showing you that. He will set the camera back on the tripod, and we'll just say thank you for joining us, and how much we have really enjoyed being a part of your lives today. And this is a wonderful stew. I know we like it, and it's made with native ingredients. Really good. So let's let Chef Walter come back in, and we'll just say thank you so much for letting us be your chefs today, coming into your lives. Do you want to say, you like lime with this, right?
Oh, yes.
He really likes lime with it. So squirt that lime on there. Good, nutritious stew. Easy to add meat to, right? You could add any kind of meat. Chef Walter was saying the other day, you could do chicken. We could do ground turkey. What else would you add?
You could put it on like a, for me, I would love to put it on, you know, you want to play with it?
Yeah.
Put some fish in it.
Oh, you could even do that. Yeah, there you go. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Chef Walter, for filming. I really enjoyed working with you. And tune in. There's tons of episodes, lots of delicious food. We hope to see you again. And thank you for joining us. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the Piñon chili beans. I'm going to tell you a little story about how these beans got their name. Chef Walter Whitewater from the Navajo Nation is actually from the community of Piñon. And this recipe is perfect. You could do it 1 times the recipe, but you could do it 10 or 20 times the recipe. So because it works so well and it's so easy to do for feasts or ceremonies, we named it after his community, Piñon. And so we call it Piñon chili beans. So it's not Piñon the nut, it's Piñon the community. And this recipe is so easy, it's going to be perfect for a feast. So you could make it for 5 people, or you could make it for 500. And we've done both ways. So we're going to just talk a little bit about beans. And beans are one of my most favorite ingredients in the world. And I want to encourage all of you, in one of the previous classes, we've learned how to make hummus. Great. Today we're going to be using kidney beans. They're named kidney because they're shaped like a kidney, and also pinto beans. And pinto beans, everybody knows. Again, very nutritious and very delicious. I don't know how many of you know this, but beans are satisfying. They're very filling. They're good for an appetite. They improve your blood sugar. This is a perfect food for those diabetics out there and regulating that blood sugar. They improve blood pressure. They're perfect
for keeping you very even. It's good for keeping weight even. It reduces inflammation. It improves bowel function, and it's reduced cholesterol. So beans, very high in protein, lots of those amino acids on that amino acid important chain. And so bean and corn, again, we're going back to our ancestral foods for Native people, corn, beans, and squash. The first recipe had our corn and our squash. This recipe has corn and beans. And together, corn and beans make that complete amino acid chain. So again, really, really good for you. I use a slow cooker. You can use a pressure cooker. You can cook your dried beans. When I use a pressure cooker, I actually just take my beans, lots of water. I do a ratio of 3 to 1, water to beans, turn it to high, because we want to make sure no bacteria or impurities are in there. Turn it to low, and then I let it slow cook a good 6 hours. You can cook them on the stove. If you're going to cook them on the stove, you do want to soak your beans. And the other option is use a can of beans. So some of you in your commercial kitchens are going to be able to get large beans. These are just canned beans. Remember, canned beans have sodium. So you're not going to use sodium. We cook beans from scratch, so we're not going to be adding, we're going to be using salt, but if you're using canned beans, you don't want to do that. So we have cut onion for this, fresh bell pepper. We have our beautiful blackened garlic. In one of our previous classes, we went over how to do that. We do that in the cast iron dry pan. So always starting first, I'm going to start by sauteing my onions. My pan back here has been heating. And so nice and hot, guys. Make sure your pan heats up. We're going to add our onion, tiny bit of oil. We don't want to use a lot. And then we're going to add a little bit of our garlic. And I love garlic. So you can always embellish how much. I think Walter's not as big a fan on garlic as I am, but I love it. I just absolutely love it. The next thing we want to add, we're going to introduce green bell pepper. Again, readily available, inexpensive, easy to access, and something you could grow in your garden. Okay, so onion first, then your garlic, then your bell pepper. Let that cook a little bit. Okay, let it start to get clear and caramelize, nice and soft there. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our tomatoes. And for this, you could use fresh tomatoes, but you could also use canned. So we're going to use canned tomatoes today to show you how we would make this stew just with canned tomatoes. So you can see that the ingredients are starting to caramelize. That's really important because this is where the flavor comes from. It's all about flavor. It's all, see that beautiful color on the onion, a little bit of brown there, nice. That green bell pepper, of course, adding our nutrients. We're going to add some vitamin C and also some flavor. So after your vegetables have sauteed, we're going to add our tomatoes. We're using 1 whole can, and we're going to, again, let that start to cook with our ingredients. So what I want to talk about is the beans. And again, just like when we cooked the corn, the beans have additional juice. So when we cook our beans in our slow cooker, we end up with beautiful cooked beans. Here we have our beautiful kidney beans and our beautiful pinto beans. And we also end up with juice. This is bean juice. And I actually love bean juice. You can use it to cook with. It's like a stock, okay? And we're going to do in a future class how to make a vegetable stock. But what's fascinating when we cook beans is you sort of made your own vegetable bean stock.
So we're going to be using this beanstalk. We have beanstalk from our kidney beans and beanstalk from our pinto beans. So this is nature's way of adding some of those nutrients, that little of that bean starch, and it's absolutely delicious. We're also using our local mild red chili. So that's going to be the other thing that we're going to be using in this stew. And then we're also going to be using corn. And if you have fresh corn or you're at the peak of the season, absolutely you can use fresh corn, but we all have frozen corn. And I think it's perfect to add the frozen corn kernels to this dish. And this is what, if you didn't have frozen or you didn't have fresh, you could also use canned. But remember, whenever you're using canned corn, that I'm going to ask all of you to empty that juice out and rinse it, because if you're using canned beans and the canned tomatoes, those may have salt. We want to keep that sodium within a healthy range. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt to my stew over here. And I'm going to add that delicious mild red chili powder. Again, think about your clientele. What do you want to add? What temperature do you want for that? And then the next thing we're going to add is our beans. So we're using cooked beans. These we cooked slowly overnight. So we're adding our kidney beans and our pinto beans. Again, letting all of those flavors, look at that, start to meld together. Okay, and then we want to add our liquid. So this is where we're going to add that bean juice, and the bean juice is going to bring in some of those delicious nutrients, and it's going to add flavor. If you don't have any of the bean liquid from cooking the beans, you can use water. Okay, that would be perfectly fine for this stew. Look at that beautiful color already. And then we're going to be adding more of that juice. I really like this stew to have some really good flavor. Look at that. Oh, wow. So again, 2 kinds of beans. We're letting that, oh, look, beautiful. That juice, that flavor. And then we're going to add the next thing that we would add is the corn, and those corn kernels can either be fresh at the right time of year. Maybe some of you are growing the corn kernels, and look at that beautiful color the corn adds. This is one of my most easy to make favorite stews, feeds lots of people. We're going to give it a taste. I'm going to let that cook. And then we're going to get a bowl and plate. And I'm going to show you how to plate this so that all of you, again, can make this and plate it. And you can let this stew cook. I usually let it reduce about 20 minutes. So we're going to give it a taste. Look at that, all those beautiful vegetables in there. That bean juice really giving some flavor and some color. So we're going to give it a taste. Lovely. I think it has good flavor. I'm going to add a tiny bit more salt, and we're going to show you how to plate. So let's add just a little bit more salt here. Okay. And then let that stew reduce, and then we're going to be ready to serve it. Now, on the last stew, we used the no-fry fry bread. This would work perfectly for this. What you want to remember is if you're serving it back to back, do you want to use the no-fry fry bread, which would certainly be an option, or which you learned in a previous class, would you like to do the corn tortillas? So for this, we're going to do corn tortillas, and we learned how to make homemade corn tortillas. And again, they're in my basket, guys. So I took my plastic, I took my napkin, and here are, let's do, how about 2? I think 2 is a nice amount for this. And my kitchen towel is in there. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to serve that stew. So we can bring the stew over. That's been cooking now and reducing. And oh, it's going to be so good. So we're going to take some of this delicious stew. Look at that beautiful color. Again, we have beans adding nutrients, some delicious flavor. We've got some vegetables, and we have beautiful juice here. This is, oh, and the smell, it's just wonderful. And again, this is perfect for a feast. This is perfect for a large crowd, but you can also make it for a small. There is our really nice stew. And you can see, again, you could think about a garnish, but I think it absolutely tastes wonderful. We can bring our sprout tray again if you wanted to have those sprouts. So again, sprouts really nutritious, and that's one of the things that we're going to be covering. So for this one, these are pea sprouts. We also have some radish sprouts. I think what I'll do is some of these little sprouts, and we're just going to reach in here with our scissors. And this is what's great about growing, and then take that, and that would go right in the center of the stew. And that, again, we're adding some wonderful nutrients, some great flavor. We will be covering salad and sprouts in a future class, and that's going to be something that we'll go through and talk about how to grow it, how to do it, how to use it for salads, but it's also great for the soup and the stew. So here is the Piñon Chile beans, and easy to make. We made it very quickly and very nutritious. Those beans, so good for you. I can't stress enough how much and how important this is in our diet. And of course, the more you eat, your body acclimates to those enzymes, and no gastro problems from the beans. So you want to keep beans in your diet, whether you're using the hummus or adding them to your soups or your stews. And so that concludes today's lesson, the hominy harvest stew and the Piñon Chile beans. And we will look forward to seeing you for our next class in a future episode. Thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Chef Frank and Chef Whitewater. The recipes and more may be found at the links below. We hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Thank you for joining us.